This is Chit and Chat, the encouraging one hour podcast, interviewing people from all walks of life, having fun, encouraging, uplifting conversations with great music as well. Kick back and relax. This is Chit and Chat, the encouraging one hour podcast.
This is Right On by Claire Cunningham. Tremendous video. Check it out.
To ride the finest horse I've ever seen, standing in 16,102 with eyes wide and green, and you ride the horse so well, then say to the top, I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. Ride on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. Ride on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to. When you ride into the night without a trace behind, run your claw along my gut one last time. I turn to face an empty space where you used to lie, and look for the spark that lights the night through a teardrop in my eye. Ride on, see you. I can never go with you no matter how I wanted to.
Hello there, and welcome to Chit and Chat, the encouraging one of a podcast. I'm your host, Jody Sheffield. Today we got some great music as always lined up, 4 or 5 songs, and fun interview. I had a chance to reconnect with Dick Fain. Dick is the co-host of the Softy and Dick Show on Sports Radio 93.3 FM, and we kind of discussed the Washington Huskies season, the Seattle Seahawks season, and discussed a little bit about the coaches that were been fired, Coach Pete Carroll, Coach Belichick, and Nick Saban, who retired. 3 of those coaches have been around for a long, long time, and we got to discuss that a little bit and some off-season transaction going on pretty soon with the Seahawks. And Dick is also the voice of the Seattle Storm. We discussed him a little bit as well. So I hope you like sports and the time we have together today, and I throw some great tunes in for you today. So this is Chit and Chat, the encouraging one-on-one podcast. Let's get it going.
Hello, Dick.
Hey, how are you?
Good, yourself? Been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Welcome back to your third appearance on Chit and Chat, the encouraging one on the podcast. If you're going to do a Seattle sports year review a little bit, mainly talk about the Huskies, and a lot of things have changed. And give us a little Huskies recap for us. Getting so close to the national championship, or winning the national championship, kind of had a falter there. But what are your last thoughts of the national championship game?
Well, I think the final thoughts on the season in general was it was probably the most fun season that I've ever experienced. I mean, I've been a Husky fan since I was born, basically, and even winning the national championship in 1991 was a different type of season because most of those games they just dominated. So you just showed up, you knew you were going to win, and even in the Rose Bowl, you showed up, you knew you were going to win, and they did. And so while it was awesome that season to be that dominant, this season with all the fourth quarter heroics that Michael Penix had and that the defense had, and it just made for a really, really fun season. And it's just unfortunate that they couldn't play their best in the biggest game. They played their best in the second biggest game. They played their best in the third biggest game. I mean, the best game of the season they had was the Pac-12 championship, and then they followed that up with a even better game against Texas in the semifinal. And it was just unfortunate that it just wasn't clicking in the national championship. And you got to hand Michigan a lot of credit for that, but not all of it. I mean, there were guys running free against Michigan's defense that just for whatever reason, skittishness. I felt Michael Penix in that last game had more time than he actually thought he had to throw the football. And I think that he just missed a few times. It was unfortunate to see the best quarterback in college football. And to my money, he is absolutely the best quarterback in college football this year. All due respect to Jaden Daniels. Michael Penix did it on a much, much bigger stage, many, many more times than Jaden Daniels did. He just didn't have his best game in the national championship.
In your opinion, why didn't Penix win the Heisman?
Very simple. That's where he plays football. It's the only reason. I mean, you put Jaden Daniels on Washington on the West Coast. You put Michael Penix on LSU, and he leads LSU to the same place that Joe Burrow led LSU. I mean, you tell me who's the Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, there's no doubt about it at all.
The Huskies should have warned me. You need blood pressure medication to watch us this year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It was like beating Oregon twice. I mean, how cool was that? The second one was a little closer than the first one, I thought, but they just handed it to them this year.
Yeah, and I think coaching went a lot into it because if you just look at the rosters, I mean, I thought Oregon was a more talented team across the board. They didn't have as good a quarterback, but they had a very, very good quarterback in Bo Nix and a very good leader in Bo Nix. I just think Dan Lanning made mistakes at the worst possible time, particularly in the game up here in Seattle. And multiple times, Dan Lanning cost his team points. And maybe that's just, youth. And Dan Lanning's a young head coach. He hasn't been in a lot of those big game situations. But, he fell into the same trap that a guy like Brandon Staley does with the Chargers, who's no longer there. Because when you're always go, go, go for it, go for it, go for it. We're playing to win. We're not playing to lose. That whole mentality, that mentality is going to burn you.
Hmm.
And I think coaches we're already seeing, I think Brandon Staley was a very cautionary tale with the Chargers, that coaches are like, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't go for it every time on 4th and 5 from the 50-yard line. Right. And so it's a pendulum, right? And Dan Lanning is, that type of coach. He's like, oh, we're going to play tough. We're going to play to win. We're not going to play to lose. Well, you lost because you quote unquote tried to play to win.
Very similar to Dan Campbell for the Detroit Lions. Very, very
Yep.
similar.
Yep.
And that bites you in the butt sometimes. But yet, sometimes you actually are able to get some of those fourth downs.
You are. No question about it.
I grew up in Arkansas. I got here in around 1990, so I wasn't familiar a lot with the Huskies, the coaches, and whatnot. But the first 2 seasons, DeBoer is 25-3. He is like the second most winning percentage in Husky history. That's insane in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean he's everything that you could have hoped for Washington when he was hired, and I don't think there was a lot of questions saying, okay, well, this is a bad hire, but I think there was just a lot of people that thought, all right, well, yeah, okay, he did a great job with Penix at Indiana. He turned Fresno State around. He turned Jake Haener into a very good college quarterback after he was here at Washington and was just a backup. Um, So I think there's a lot of promise that he could work with quarterbacks, that he and offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb could work with quarterbacks. And boy, oh boy, could they work with quarterbacks. But he also was just a great leader, just an absolutely phenomenal leader, no question about it.
Him and Pete Carroll, I think, have very, very similarities. We'll discuss Coach Pete in a second. But I think their similarities are just very similar, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pete's got a level of energy and juice that is unmatched, I think, in coaching. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Pete Carroll at 72 years of age has got more energy than the other 31 head coaches in the NFL put together, and
Hands down.
that's why I don't think that's why I don't think he's going to sit around and be an advisor for the Seattle Seahawks for very long. I think Pete Carroll's going to jump out there and continue. He knows that 80-year-olds probably aren't going to be coaching in the NFL, so he's got a finite window of time if he still wants to be a coach, which I believe he does, to get out there and win one more time. And he wants to make the Hall of Fame too. He wants to make the Hall of Fame too. If Pete goes one more place, I mean, he should be in the Hall of Fame right now, but he's not, and it'll take a long time, and he might not even be around when he gets inducted to the Hall of Fame. But if he goes someplace else and takes a 6-11 team and takes them to the play and he doesn't have to take them win a Super Bowl like he did in Seattle, but he takes a 6-11 team and turns them into a playoff team, a multiple year playoff team within 3 years. I mean, that should be the last stamp, right? That should be the last stamp on his Hall of Fame passport.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah. Finish one more question for the Huskies as we kind of get ready for the draft. I don't know how many players the Huskies are in the top 50 or so, but I think there's quite a few, aren't there?
Yeah, I think there's 4. I think there's 4 first rounders. I think Rome Odunze is your top talent. I think he's a number 1 wide receiver right away in the NFL. I think he's a guy that's going to be a 1,000-yard guy for 10 years in the NFL. He's everything you'd want a receiver to be. Absolutely soft hands, ability to adjust in the air, big enough, fast enough. I mean, he's not a 4.3 guy. He's not a guy that has a 40-inch vertical leap, but he's big enough. He's fast enough. He's just smooth. He knows how to get open. I think he's the top pick. I think Troy Fautanu probably is the second pick, the left tackle. He's a monster. He's a road grader. He should go somewhere in that top 15 or so. Penix is the wild card. You've seen him anywhere from top half of the first round to top half of the second round. I think you'd be foolish if you're the Seahawks at, I think it's 16 that they have. You'd be foolish not to take him if he's there at 16. And then the fourth being Braylon Trice, who had a really good year and a guy that I wasn't really sure if he deserved preseason All-American. He was an AP preseason All-American. I was like, I haven't seen All-American play from Braylon Trice. That's what I said. I said that publicly. I said that on the air in August when it came out. And I was like, I haven't seen All-American production from Braylon Trice. Well, we saw 7, 8 games this year where he absolutely looked the part of a first-team All-American,
Yeah.
including that Texas game. And so there's your fourth. I don't know if he's a first-round pick. Could be. And defensive linemen from Washington have been drafted high in the last few years and have had played very well. Look at Vita Vea. Look at Greg Gaines, who wasn't drafted high but played very, very well. Joe Tryon was a surprise first-round pick, and he's played very well. Levi Onwuzurike was, I believe, a second-round pick. So there's been quite a few Husky defensive linemen in the last 4 or 5 years that have done well in the NFL. So there's a pedigree there.
You have someone to watch next year that's currently on the Husky team, someone you think could make a step out and really be somebody next year?
Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see Cam Davis coming off of injury. They really missed him this season, the running back. Now, Dylan Johnson stepped in and did an unbelievable job. But Dylan Johnson was not supposed to be the starting running back for the Huskies. It was supposed to be Cam Davis, who is, he is a hammer type running back. And that's exactly what Washington lacked in the national championship game. They needed that hammer running back, and they didn't have it with Dylan Johnson. So, because he got re-injured on the first play. There's a couple of receivers that now will have an opportunity to kind of step out in the limelight now that Jalen McMillan is gone and Rome is going to be gone as well. So, Denzel Boston, Jeremy Bernard are a couple of guys that I think will step forward and be, that the punch that they had with the threesome with Polk and McMillan and Adunze this year. I'm trying to think on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a couple of guys, Zach Durfee, a transfer that just was made eligible at the end of the season. He should be a guy that, I'm not going to say he's going to replace Braylon Trice, but hopefully he's a guy that can have, 5 to 10 sacks next year and be that big time pass rusher.
How do you feel about the conference change next year and how you think the Huskies may do next year?
Well, I got to see the Husky roster first. It's funny. It's in this world of college football.
Transfer portal.
Yeah, you can't ask me that question until after the portal closes, so I know who's actually on this football team and who's not on this football team. But they should be fine. I saw The Athletic put them at number 9, interestingly enough, with a first-round matchup in the playoffs of 8-9 Michigan at the Big House. How would you like a rematch? That'd be the third time if those two teams played. It'd be the third time in less than 12 months that those two teams would play, and that's just bizarre. But the Big Ten's the right move. This is a 2-conference world in college football anymore. You need to look no further than the college football playoff rankings this year. There was one team, Florida State, that was in the top 12 that is not a Big Ten or SEC team next year, and it's going to be the same every single year. The Big Ten's going to get 4 at least. The SEC is going to get 4 at least. You're going to have your one group of 5 team that has to be in there, that is probably going to get crushed most years. And then you're going to have one from the Big 12. You have your Big 12 champion. You're going to have the ACC champion, and maybe Notre Dame. And there's your 12. That's it. So Washington should be able to realistically compete for one of those top 4 Big Ten spots every single year. I don't think they're going to get to the playoffs every single year. I think those are going to be reserved for the Georgias and the Alabamas, the Ohio State. There's probably only, 4 or 5 teams in the country that can pretty much punch their ticket every single year to the playoffs. But the Huskies should be in that next group of about 15 teams that should punch their ticket every 2 to 3 years and be just a consistent player in the college football playoffs, along with, Big Ten teams like Penn State would certainly be in that group. And, 3 or 4 LSU would be in that group, 3 or 4 other SEC teams that would be in that group that should punch their ticket every couple of years.
If I told you on January 11th, 2024, 3 coaches were no longer with their team, Their record is 767 and 338 with 14 championships, 7 Super Bowls. Be like,
Yeah.
what the heck happened?
Well, they all got into their 70s. That's what happened, I think. And that's, and that's, eventually Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, and Pete Carroll all retire. And it looks like only one of them is going to retire out of the three. I think Belichick's ready to coach. I think Pete Carroll's ready to coach. And whether they're on the sidelines this coming season, we'll find out soon. But those two guys are still raring to go for another few years. And as far as Nick Saban goes, I mean, I think he's the perfect candidate. Yeah, he'll probably do some TV stuff for a while, but he is the perfect candidate for the college football playoff czar or the college football playoff commissioner, whatever you want to call it, whatever this new college football is going to be with two conferences and, however many teams, 32 teams, which I firmly believe it will be. It'll be somewhere in that 32 team range in the next, 5 to 10 years. Nick Saban is the guy to run that. I think it makes the most sense.
Mm. Seahawks had a rough season, finishing 9-8, I believe. In your opinion, what have gone 3 areas of the most importance for the offseason the Seahawks have to fix?
Well, I think it's interesting how you phrase that there, and that just shows you how great Pete Carroll has been in Seattle. You just said they had a rough season and they went 9-8, and the only reason they didn't go to the playoffs is because the Bears didn't beat the Packers in the last game. That's how good Pete Carroll has had this thing rolling. I mean, that 9-8 is a rough. You're exactly right. 9-8 is a rough season for Seattle. 9-8 is not a rough season for about 20 teams in the NFL.
Nope.
9-8 is like, hey, look at us, for about 20 other teams in the NFL. But I think this is going to be. I think it should, with a new coach coming in. I think it should be a time where you can just strip it all down. Right, you get rid of Jamal Adams, you eat the rest of that dead cap. You probably move away from Quandre Diggs. He's got a big payment. I think you consider, depending on what type of coach you get, if you get another defensive-minded coach like Pete Carroll, who wants to play games in the low 20s, I seriously consider trading DK Metcalf, because I think you could get an absolute haul for DK Metcalf. And if you're rebuilding over the next couple of years behind this new coach, there's a chip you could use to do it. I mean, you could get a first and a second, or a first and a third for DK Metcalf, a guy under contract. But if you hire an offensive coach that's ready to rock, comes in like, hey, we're going to score 30 and we're going to get DK Metcalf the ball, 150 times a year, which is what you should do with DK Metcalf. You should target that guy 150 times a year instead of like 110, which is what they've been doing the last few years. Then I'm fine with keeping DK Metcalf. Areas of improvement is just the line of scrimmage, man. I mean, that's the biggest weakness of the John Schneider, Pete Carroll era, was trying to figure out the offensive line. And they went cheap on the offensive line. Never once, not one time, did they spend big money on a free agent offensive lineman. Just a guy that was like, all right, you know what? This guy's 28 years of age. He's got 5 years left of his prime. Okay, we got to pay him $15 million a year. Fine, we're going to pay him $15 million a year. And they just never did that. And they never, and rarely did they use high draft picks on offensive linemen. And when they did, it had mixed success. And we're still trying to figure out whether the top picks in Charles Cross and Abe Lucas from the draft a couple of years ago, it's still too early to see, because they've both been a little injury prone, right? When they've been in there, they've been good, haven't been world beaters, but they've been good. And then, Abe Lucas probably I don't even think he played half the season this year.
We'll do a couple of quick fire Seahawks questions. Will Geno be starting next year?
I would still lean yes. I would have said definitely yes if Pete Carroll was still the head coach. But you just never really know what a new regime wants, right? And the fact that you're not tied to a lot of money with Geno Smith, you can get rid of him without a lot of debt. I mean, maybe zero dead cap. I have to take a look at that, but you can get rid of him very, very easily. And so if a coach wants to go in a different direction, he could do that. I think I think the best order of business is to bring him back for one more year and have him tutor a rookie that you draft highly. I think it's time. I think it's time for the Hawks to draft a quarterback. I would be absolutely thrilled with Michael Penix. And I think Geno Smith, who already has worked out with Michael Penix, who already knows Michael Penix, has a great relationship with Michael Penix. I think that would be a perfect marriage right there, where you give Geno the ball for 17 more games. He shows Michael Penix the ropes in the NFL, and then you hand the reins in 2025 over to Penix.
I mentioned that a few times to colleagues and coworkers. They're like, "Oh, he's injury prone." I'm not sure what to say about that because I didn't see him get hurt all year this year.
Yeah, he didn't get hurt all year. Well, he was banged up, but
Yeah.
but not to the point where he couldn't play. And
Right.
that's 2 years in a row. I mean, how many college quarterbacks go 2 consecutive years and play? Let's see, he played 13 games last year, and he played 15 games
15
this year.
a
That's
year. Yep.
28 football games where he never missed a snap due to injury. I mean, there's not a lot of college quarterbacks that go 28 straight games and don't miss a snap due to injury. So
Nope.
he's, I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's as quote unquote injury prone as most NFL starting quarterbacks. I
I
mean,
agree.
guys look at this year. Everybody got hurt. I mean, almost every NFL starting quarterback got hurt. So what if
Yep.
he's one of those guys, right?
Well, Lockett be on the team next year.
Ooh, there's another one that I'd have to look at as, I haven't delved into the offseason cap implications of these guys yet, but I certainly will, and that'll be a big talking point in the next few months. I think if you're, if you want to rebuild a little bit and you can get out of Tyler Lockett's contract for relatively inexpensive money, you could probably do it. However, I don't see what your options are at wide receiver. The Hawks wide receiver core has always been very, very thin. They've always had, they've had top end guys for really, much of the last 10, 12 years. I mean, you had your Doug Baldwin, then you had your Lockett, then you had DK. So you've always had your top end guys, but it's been tough to fill out a third and fourth wide receiver. And, Jackson Smith and Jigba is, would take over for Tyler Lockett as the number 2 guy behind DK. But then who's your number 3 if you don't have Lockett, right? They just don't have an answer. So that would have to be if they were to get rid of Lockett, that would have to be another Jackson Smith and Jigba high draft pick type guy that they bring in. And do you want to spend another high draft pick on a wide receiver after you just did it last year? You've got other needs. So I think I just answered your question in a roundabout way. And I think I came to the conclusion that, we need Tyler Lockett back next year.
Last one for Seahawks is since Carroll's left, we're moved on, fired, however you want to put it. Will Bobby Wagner be here one more year, you think, or will he move on as well?
He says he wants to be. Statistically, your PFF grades, they graded him pretty favorably. I don't think there's a noticeable speed drop off for Bobby Wagner, but there's not a noticeable level of play drop off. Yeah, he still fills the lane. He's had a couple of just monster hits on, he had a huge sack in that Cardinal game where he just, pummeled Kyler Murray. So, I think he's a very good leader of that defense. And again, it's just hard to say what a new coach wants to do and whether he wants to come in and tear everything down. Pete Carroll came in and basically had the first year, 2010, where he kind of left the roster mostly the same. And then as soon as that first year was over, he just completely blew it up. And he had about a 1.5 year period where he was rebuilding. And so if another coach wants to do that, maybe that rebuilding doesn't start until the end of this year. We'll have to see.
A few more questions for you to wrap up. What was your initial thought when you heard Pete Carroll was fired?
I thought it was time. I thought I've been a staunch Pete Carroll supporter. There was lots of fans on my Twitter feed that, wanted him fired 5 years ago. And, I wanted to stay patient because I felt that he earned it, and he was able to continue to have the Seahawks play at a reasonably high level, not as high a level as they did 10 years ago, but a reasonably high level. But I think they didn't make the playoffs again this year, back-to-back 9-8 seasons, which is really what, they were, I would say they were slightly under expectation. I thought they were going to go 10-8, 10-7, and probably lose, depending on the matchup, either lose in the first round or lose in the second round of the playoffs. So they lost one more game than I thought they were going to lose, and it cost them a playoff berth. Um, they lost some games that they really never should have lost. They had more close losses than they had close wins,
Yeah.
So that Dallas game on Thursday Night Football, my gosh, I mean, that was a game they should have had. The Cincinnati game at Cincinnati, where you got 4 shots to win the game from the 6-yard line. I mean, it's just, there was just a lot of games where they could have very easily. They were much closer to a 10-7 team than they were to an 8-9 team. We'll put it that way.
You have top 3 choices who you would choose as Seattle Seahawks?
Yes. Jim Harbaugh 1, Jim Harbaugh 2, and Jim Harbaugh 3. Those are my 3 choices.
Why is that?
I think the easiest way to put it is I firmly believe Jim Harbaugh is going to win a Super Bowl championship in the next 10 years. So why not have it be here? Mm-hmm. He's going to win it somewhere. Why not have it be here? I think both Harbaughs win a Super Bowl in the next 10 years. John may win it this year.
Possibly,
and, yes. Yeah. And, he is a guy that is a proven winner. His way works in the pros. His way works in college football. He knows how to hire the right guys. His teams are always very well prepared. I mean, I saw it firsthand this week in Houston at that game. I'm not saying that Harbaugh out-coached Kalen DeBoer, but Kalen DeBoer is an elite head football coach, and Jim Harbaugh matched him move for move. So I think it would be a great fit. 14 years after you take a shot on a college football national championship coach amidst scandal at USC, you take a shot on a college football national championship coach that is amidst scandal at Michigan. I think it just makes perfect sense. And if you're going to fire Pete Carroll, why are you going to fire Pete Carroll for a coordinator, right? And, why are you going to fire Pete Carroll to hire Dan Quinn? I like Dan Quinn. We had Dan Quinn on our show 2 weeks ago. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. I think he's a good NFL coach, good NFL head coach. I think he's a very good NFL coordinator. But are you going to fire Pete Carroll to hire Dan Quinn? Look what the Allen family has done in their 2 big hires at coach. In 1999, they made their first hire. They got Mike freaking Holmgren from the Green Bay Packers. All right?
The coach.
Huge swing. And think about the Seahawks Q rating in 1999 versus the Seahawks Q rating now. Nobody even knew where Seattle was in 1999. And they were able to get Mike Holmgren over here. Then they hired Pete Carroll. They fired Jim Mora after a year because Mora was kind of like the Holmgren, guy in waiting, right? And that didn't work. And they hired Pete Carroll, a huge swing, but one of the biggest coaching names in all of football at the time. So they had 2 huge swings, and both of those swings took them to the Super Bowl. So do you think they're really going to fire Pete Carroll and not go for another huge swing? I really do. I'd be disappointed that if they fire Pete Carroll and just try to hit a single, right? Because I think if you try to hit a single, I think Dan Quinn's a nice, safe single where, hey, he's going to get you to the playoffs every couple years, maybe a pop and go win a couple games in the playoffs every few years. But I would be very surprised if Dan Quinn took the Seattle Seahawks to the Super Bowl. I just would.
Those 2 hires, do you think it was more Paul Allen than Jody Allen? And how much has that changed, do you think?
It was yes, it was absolutely. It was Paul Allen. It was his associate his right-hand man, Bert Cold. It was Todd Lywicki, who now helps run the Seattle Kraken, that hired Pete Carroll. Todd, at least as far as I know right now, is not going to be involved in this hire. But I would hope that Jody has, learned from the successes of Paul Allen, and then has learned from the failure that 2008 and 2009 was, when Mike Holmgren was, kind of shown the door, gracefully, and had his heir apparent in Jim Mora. And 2009 was the most disastrous Seahawks year since the early 90s, where they went 5-11 and the team quit on Jim Mora and lost the last. Go back and look at the 2009 December for the Seahawks. It was like 45-14 loss after 45-14 loss for like a month straight, and and then Pete Carroll was hired 2 months later.
If you could describe each of these coaches in one word, Belichick, Carroll, and Saban, what one word would you use for each of them?
Oh man, yeah. Well, Pete Carroll, I would just say energy, just unmatched energy. Well, Saban, I mean, the GOAT. I mean, Saban's the GOAT. I mean, there's no. I think he's left. I think he's left no doubt as who the greatest college football coach of all time is. I mean, there was an argument there for a while with Bear Bryant, and
Bear Bryant, yeah.
Saban's got the numbers over Bear Bryant. And I think Saban did it in a tougher era. Because remember, Bear Bryant was winning championships when the mega schools it was basically unlimited scholarships, and the mega schools could just have 8 5-star running backs on their team and just hoard them, because everybody just wanted to play for Alabama. And Saban now has done it in an era where there's scholarship limitations. And in the last 3 years, there's transfer portal, there's NIL, there's a college football playoff. I just think it's a harder era now to win a national championship than it was back then. You didn't have to win as many games back then to win a national championship. You only had to win 12 games. Now you got to win 15.
And not lose
if you want
any.
to go undefeated and not lose any. Exactly. So, and then Belichick. I mean, the first word that comes to mind is grumpy, but that doesn't give him, his due. I would like to see. I would like to see Belichick succeed someplace else. I would like to see Belichick and I think he wants to as well. I think he hears the criticisms. You can only win with Tom Brady. Look what you've done without Tom Brady. Yep. And I think he wants to go someplace else and win without Tom Brady. Find a quarterback and be able to get back to the playoffs without Tom Brady. So that'll, shut the haters up, because I do think he's an excellent head coach. And as far as the word would be, I would just say consistent, probably. Like he has his consistent way. It's his way or the highway. And it worked for a long, long time.
Last time we spoke, it was about the Russell Wilson trade, and how things have turned on that situation.
Yeah.
Where do you think Russell will end up?
It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about. How about Bill Belichick partners up with Russell Wilson someplace?
Ooh.
How about that? Like in a Washington or something like that, and they just partner up, and Bill Belichick kind of plays close to the vest, run first, hard-nosed defense football, which is exactly how Russell Wilson succeeded in Seattle. Defense first, run the ball, then let Russell play action off of that. You can't put too much on Russell. You couldn't put too much on Russell's shoulders 7 years ago. You certainly can't put too much on Russell's shoulders now. He has never, ever, ever succeeded as a guy that throws 40-plus times in a game. Russell Wilson has his sweet spot, and his sweet spot is 30 to 35 attempts a game, throw for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, maybe give you a couple of first down scrambles. That's the Russell Wilson sweet spot. And, that's what a coach needs to realize about Russell Wilson is he's not a guy that's going to carry a football team. But Russell Wilson's good enough still to be the off-speed pitch, right? to be an off-speed pitch of a team that has a great O-line, a great running game, and a really locked down, solid defense, and that all they need is that veteran quarterback to kind of get them over the top. And so I still think Russell could be that with the right coach.
Double checking. You still the voice of the Seattle Storm?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. You got an exciting season. When does basketball season start up?
It'll starts in May. It's a weird year this year because of the Olympics, so we have a full month off. I was looking at the calendar. I don't have a game between July 16th and August 16th because of the Olympics. So it'll be the season will be extended a little bit into September. Last year was a more fun season than I thought it was going to be, just because of a couple reasons. One, because they had 4 rookies that came in and did a very, very nice job. I think all of them will have good success in this league. And then Jewel Lloyd she put on a show. I mean, she just every night out was a show. And she goes out there and breaks the scoring record in the WNBA for a single season and does it in style. And it just, so despite the win-loss record, which was not Storm-esque at all, it was still a very fun season. We still had, I believe, second or third. It was very close. Second or third most attendance in the WNBA for a team that spent most of the season at the bottom of the standings. I mean, it just shows you what kind of passion this city has for women's basketball.
Over under 5 years or less or more, we'll get a Seattle Sonics basketball team.
Under. I think by the end of this calendar year, we'll have a definitive answer as to when they're going to start. That's how I feel.
Dick, thank you so much. Appreciate it. You can hear Dick Fain on the Softy Dick Show on Sports Radio 93.3 FM. It's been an honor. Hope to talk to you again next year. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jody. Appreciate it, man.
Take care of yourself.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Well, it's time to take a quick break for our commercials for our sponsors, sharing about local businesses here in the area that have been part of this podcast for a while. And I'm always reaching out to other businesses, locally owned, veteran-owned, who wants to come on board and I can share about them and their business and get their word out. So let's step away for about a minute or so to enjoy some commercials by local sponsors. I want to take a few minutes and thank each of my sponsors. From day one, these sponsors have been along this side and more are being part of this podcast. I love sharing about locally owned businesses here in the area in my backyard and how important it is to share about them. But thank you, Lone Star Donuts. They have 3 businesses, Port Orchard, Silverdale, and Poulsbo. Amazing tasting, fresh donuts every day. Tequiza and Tequiza Street, Roberto and his staff are amazing people, and they have the freshest tasting, authentic Mexican food around and really good breakfast burritos. Don's and Dylan's Double D's Barbecue and Smokery. Great tasting barbecue, falls off the bone. They're amazing in the area and a great tasting food truck. Alex Pablo, who goes above and beyond helping out businesses with menu redesign and helps them expand. Thank you. 19th Hole Bar and Grill, a great place and a fun atmosphere for great tasting food. Fish and chips, steak night, Taco Tuesday. Go by and check them out. Chico Chicken and Pizza. Best tasting fried chicken around and amazing tasting pizza and specialty subs. Thank you for being part of this podcast. The Big Apple Diner. When you pull in that driveway and you see the decor, it takes you back to 1950 and the amazing decor and great tasting breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and 30 kinds of milkshakes are to die for. And the Dandelion Sticker Company. Amanda, single mom, brought an idea, now a vision and reality, making awesome stickers, hats, decals. So you want to expand your business? Check her out. Dandelion Sticker Company, thank you for being part of this podcast. Also, on the chitandchatpodcast.com page, you go to each business, click on them, order from them, check them out. They're great businesses here in the area, and I love teaming up with them and looking forward to teaming up with other businesses as well that support local businesses. Thank you for being part of the Chit and Chat Encouraging One Another podcast. Encouraging fun conversations and amazing music every Wednesday here on Chit and Chat, the Encouraging One Another podcast. I almost forgot the most important part of the podcast, sharing days from the National Day calendar. And I'm doing a few for the week of January 24th to January 30th. Peanut Butter Day is upcoming. Irish Coffee Day. I love coffee of all kinds, so I'm excited for that one. Spouse's Day, so be sure to take out your spouse for dinner. Nice restaurant, and have some great quality time. It will be Chocolate Cake Day, so you can do Spouse's Day out and get chocolate cake for dinner, for dessert. It will be Kazoo Day is coming up soon, so everybody buy your kazoo and start training for the kazoo marching band. I own and operate a toy store. It's going to be Puzzle Day coming up next week, so be sure you go buy your puzzle and maybe get a family affair and on the dining room table and bust out a puzzle for a few hours. And Croissant Day. These are a few of the National Day calendar days from January 24th to January 30th. Be sure and check out nationaldaycalendar.com for more cool dates. Doing this podcast has given me the ability to reach out to musicians all over the world. And this song is by a singer-songwriter from Poland who lives in the UK. And this song is called Scattered Dreams by Eulina.
Floating above my head, I'm trying to catch them. Put some air in my veins to feel alive again. Taken by the wind, I'm trying to chase them. To add shine to my skin, feel my heart within. Oh, my scattered dreams, leaving me empty on my road to blend in. Oh, my scattered dreams, drowning so lonely, people think I'm waving. Scattered all over the floor, I'm trying to collect them. To add the value to my soul, to find where I belong. Slipping through my fingers, I'm trying to stop them. To put
was Evelina, and her website is evelinamusic.com. That's EWELINA music.com. Introducing our podcast spotlight is Jessica Cox, episode number 64. She is the world's first armless pilot. She is a 4th-degree black belt in Taekwondo and an inspirational speaker who travels all over the world. She is such inspiration to so many people. In this segment, she shares about when she was asked to speak to a group of kids and to share her story and the impact it had on her as she continues to speak to kids and people all over the world. This is Jessica Cox.
Later in 2005, you graduated from the University of Arizona with several degrees, and you continued to face challenge after challenge, and you realized you wanted to share your experiences and become an encourager to others. When did it really click that you wanted to be a motivational speaker and to share your story?
I did my first motivational speech when I was a sophomore in high school. I was literally just asked, can you come speak to these 7th graders in middle school? They have a lot of adversity, and it would be nice for you to share a few words. I shared a few words about my life. They were so inspired, and I was like, had this light bulb moment, like, oh, wow, well, maybe I should consider doing this more often. And that led to another opportunity and another opportunity. And then I thought, well, what if I consider this as a profession? And I found out about other motivational speakers and started to follow what they do and reached out to make the connection. And I said, okay, well, I want to consider this as a profession. And here we are 17 years later, 27 countries later, speaking all over the world, 2 TEDx talks. And it's taken me to wonderful places around the world to experience.
Ever since I was a kid, people always doubted what I could do. I think limits are just meant to be overcome.
Jessica is most famous for being the first armless pilot in aviation history to fly using only their feet. She also has an unrestricted driver's license. She's a certified scuba diver. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology. She's a 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo and certified trainer.
She's pretty unstoppable. When people see me, they immediately look at the fact that I don't have arms. And I think there's a parallel with the way people see challenges. They immediately see either the difficulty or the impossibility.
Jessica is there to constantly be a reminder of don't let assumptions of people who don't understand what you're capable of hold you back.
If I hear people use the words I can't, I like to remind them that those words will limit you. You can stop yourself from saying those words. You would be surprised at what's possible.
This is Bridges by Andrew Dean.
I built some up, I burned some down, but this new bridge puts me on solid ground. You walked in, you changed my life, you gave me hope and a way to survive. Honey, I need you, you changed my life. Darling, I love you, so glad you're my wife. I haven't always been who I should be. I wandered from place to place, burning bridges on every road I see, until I saw your smiling face. I built some up and I burned some down, but this new bridge puts me on so glad you're my wife. Yeah! Now I'm so blessed that I have you. You know I wouldn't change a thing. You fill my world with hope and gladness. You give my voice a reason to sing. I built some up and I burned some down, but this new bridge puts me on solid ground. When you walked in, you changed my life. You gave me hope and a way to survive. Honey, I need you. You changed my life. Darling, I love you. So glad you're my wife. I built some up and I burned some down, but this new bridge puts me on solid ground.
That was Andrew Dean, Bridges. As we wrap up today, I want to remind you how critical, how important it is to take that one letter out of your vocabulary. The letter T in can't. You can. Just like Jessica Cox said, she has removed can't in her vocabulary. I want to challenge you to do the same. Don't let others tell you you can't do this and you can't do that. You can do it. Don't ever forget that.
Thank you so much for joining today's podcast with Dick Fain. We kind of recapped some Washington Huskies and Seattle Seahawks a little bit. I'm a big sports fan and like doing that as well. We also had a podcast spotlight with Jessica Cox. And if you haven't heard Jessica Cox's story, please go back and listen to my podcast or find her online. She has an incredible story of determination, of taking that letter T out of can't and always can. She tries, she cries, she tries, and she hates using the word can't. Her story is so powerful and so courageous that with no arms, she shoots for the moon in everything she does. And talk with her and getting her story. She scuba dives, she's flies airplanes, she drives. She is an inspirational speaker, and she speaks from the heart where she's come from, what she's done. This podcast is all about encouraging others and really reaching out to people from all walks of life. And I truly believe everyone has a story. I'm sure someone's out there has encouraged you, perhaps inspired you to be blank. A singer-songwriter, firefighter, police officer, join the military. Someone in your life has inspired you not to quit, to get back up when you fall down, to dust yourself off. And when I'm reaching out to people, from all walks of life, from all around the world, getting their story and sharing their story with you. That's what it's all about. You never know the impact one word, one conversation could make on someone's life halfway across the world or even down the street from your house. Being kind, sharing hope, inspiring others, encouraging others, we can make encouragement contagious. And I've said it long, and sometimes I forget. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, encourage one another and lift each other up. Especially, these cold temps we're having. Be sure you check on your neighbors, around you, your family, your friends, elderly. Be sure you're doing okay. If they got some frozen pipes, help them get the help they need to be sure they don't, get health gets turned for the worse, or they get really, really cold and unable to stay warm. I love encouraging people and talking with people, and I hope you're enjoying this podcast. Please subscribe to it. Follow it. It's on Spotify, Anchor, iHeartRadio. It's also played once a week on Total Mix Radio, totalmixradio.org. Independent radio station that plays independent artists and music, just like what I do. I'm on podcast groups all around the world, just trying to share some encouragement with you. Thanks so much for our time today. Please continue to follow, share with family and friends about this podcast, Chit and Chat, the Encouraging One Another podcast, what's always about encouraging others. God bless. Take care.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
This is Chit and Chat, the Encouraging One Another podcast. It's always about encouraging others.